So, hello everyone, and welcome to this is the fourth episode of the Pet Talk podcast. Welcome everyone, and we're so happy with how the podcast is going so far. We're happy we're having those first views, and then we just want to say thank you to all of you, and welcome to the fourth episode. As always, this is Juan, and we're with Victor. So, hi Victor, how are you doing?
Hi everyone, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Doing really good. And then, do you want to tell these people what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening to our podcast and be joining us for our fourth episode. Today's episode is going to be about nutrition for our pets, specifically dogs and cats. So I'm going to try to answer some common questions that people may have.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of things to talk about. So we're happy to have Victor here that is going to be able to give us a little bit of light. So let's get started. So for the start, Victor, do you want to do like a small introduction for this episode?
Yes. So yeah, dog food and cat food is like one of the most important topics. Owning a pet, I think that's some people even care more about their dog or cat's food than they actually care about their own food. So I think that's really important. And it's one of the most common questions that you get at a veterinary hospital. A lot of veterinarians, unfortunately, don't like talking about nutrition. Many of them do, but if you ever have questions and if you have questions that your veterinarian is not comfortable answering, there's also veterinary nutritionists out there that also do um, telehealth, like communication through your computer, emailing and things like that, consultations through that you can ask questions about. People spend tons of money on their dog and cat food, so it's a really important topic. So as far as picking the food, I think one of the most important things is, of course, choosing the food for the right species. So if you have a cat, get cat food. Don't give your cat dog food. And if you have a dog, give him dog food or him or her dog food. Cats and dogs have very specific needs. Cats are obligate carnivores, so they need to have protein. They need to have taurine, which is a type of amino acid, which Juan knows a lot about amino acids. And then there's types of vitamins A's that cats need because they need to have their carnivores. Dogs, on the other hand, are omnivores. So you might be thinking, like, well, wolves eat a lot of meat. So why are dogs omnivores? Well, dogs have been domesticated. They were like basically the first animals to be domesticated. So they've been with humans for centuries, many, many thousands of years. So they've already adapted to eating more plants, so vegetables and so there's going to be very specific nutrient profiles in the food. And
Yeah.
then the other thing to consider. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. I was just listening.
Yeah. So then the other thing is to consider the life stage. If they're growing, puppies and kittens need more calories. Of course, they're growing, so you need more things for them. And then when they're pregnant or lactating, they're gonna be needing more energy, of course, at those moments as well. So the life stage will determine how much they're getting. And then adult maintenance foods are going to be for those maintaining their body weight, not growing. And so it's going to have less calories, less caloric density in the food. So that's really important. There are, of course, a lot of tons of different diets out there. You want to the first thing I would say, look for the AAFCO, the AAFCO nutritional adequacy statement on the label. AAFCO is uh, the Association of American Feed Control Officials. So it's an organization that's a voluntary organization in the United States. They publish these nutrient profiles for dogs and cats. They say how much of each specific nutrient, how much protein, how much fat, how much carbohydrates, how much of each vitamin and mineral that should be in the food, minimums and maximums of at least the minimum. Some of them have maximums, so you don't want to go over. And it also describes the ratios of different nutrients. So some nutrients like calcium and phosphorus, you want to have the correct ratio, or else it's going to cause a lot of problems in your dog or cat. So that nutrient profile gets published, and then the food company then uses that profile to make their food. They can analyze their food, make sure it's meeting those requirements, and they can also do feeding trials. If they're doing feeding trials, also doing analysis usually. So the feeding trial, they're giving that food to an animal to see how they'll do with that food and over time. Uh,
Okay. So
yeah,
that
a lot
was
of information.
a lot of nice information. Let's see if we can start breaking it a little bit, step by step.
Yeah, let's do that.
So let's start for the beginning. So we were talking like we want different kind of food for different kind of animals. That was because they have like different nutritional requirements,
Right.
right? And you also tell a nice story about how dogs get domesticated a long time ago.
Uh
I
huh.
actually was reading also about that, and I was reading a little bit like at the beginning they eat like just meat, like they were like hunting dogs. They was
Uh huh.
just getting their prey and get prize and eating them, but now the dogs that we have today are like super different and actually genetically super different to what those wolves were like millions of years ago.
Yeah.
And now today they develop like a lot of enzymes, or I don't know, yeah, like a lot of enzymes and its own way to metabolize another kind of ingredients, right? So it's not just meat. And I wanted to go back to that just because I remember when I first get Nico, my husky. I remember like meeting some people in the streets and they were like, "Oh, that's a wolf. You need to be careful and just give him like meat. It's better if you buy raw meat for him and feed him with meat instead of getting any other food." So I remember telling that to my vet, and he was like actually scared, like, "No, no, 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 no. Your dog needs other nutrients." So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So that's why I started reading a little bit more about that, and that's when I read about this story about how we domesticated the dogs and how they stay with us. So yeah, it's important that when you're having a dog or a cat or whatever, you just get the regular food that they sell for them. And actually, I guess later today's episode, we're gonna start talking about some claims that we can see on that packages that might be a little bit misleading. Some of them are a little bit more marketing strategies than real valuable information. Another example I have is like those food, the dog food I will say about dog because that's the animal that I always have, but I'm pretty sure it's something similar for cats and other animals that say that the protein they use is real meat to make it.
Mm.
So when people goes to the market and read that real meat claim,
Uh
they
huh.
might think that this food is better than the any other food because this is real meat.
Uh
It's
huh.
like what is in the other kind of food that if it's not real meat, right?
Right.
And the thing is like as Victor was saying at the beginning, animals need, as included us as humans, need the combination of three different kind of nutrients that are like carbohydrates. How you say that? I'm sorry.
Yes. You said it right. Carbohydrates. Yeah.
Carbohydrates,
Or just carbs.
fat, yeah, carbs, fats, and protein, right? So this protein that is used in the pet food that is not like natural meat is like actually real protein that they extract from animal parts that it not all the time are like, but it also can come from bones, from skin, and that's like a whole industry behind the proteins, right? When an animal comes to the butcher, I don't know if that's the play the word,
The
butchery.
processing plant.
Okay, to the processing plants, they take the meat for human consumption, and then there is a lot of animal left that nobody gonna eat. That's the internal organs, the bones, the skin. All that thing is processed, and they extract from there from that protein from that thing the protein that is included in animal food. However, you might be listening to me and thinking like, okay, that doesn't sound like really good, right? But that's real protein, and that's the real thing that all of us need. And of course, I'm not saying all those protein is the same. Some proteins have more quality than others, but they are not necessarily like when they say that's not real meat, what they means is like some other food, like some other animal food, when they made it, they just boiled the like the meat and put it in the formulation. The thing with the real meat is like meat is not 100% protein. Meat has a lot of water in it. So when they are trying to formulate an animal's food, and I don't know if this is the right moment to talk about it. I guess I'm just throwing away all the structure of the episode, but
That's
let's
no, the
let's
good.
improvise a little bit. But the thing is, when they bring this meat to the formulation and they say, okay, we're gonna need a 50% of protein or 50% of meat for this preparation, and they bring 50% of raw meat, what we need to consider is like out of that raw meat, 80% is water or 70% is water. So when that water vaporizes, it only gonna left like 20 or 30% of that 50% that at the end is going to be around 12 to 15% of the concentration of protein in the food, and then it doesn't gonna be very balanced. So they need to either way get the same protein from powder protein or from somewhere else. And then there is also different levels of quality within those powder protein, and it's because, as I was saying at the beginning, some of them source like that protein from skin and bones, which is good. It's still the protein your dog needs, but maybe there is not like the full tea. There's also like another like grades when they have, okay, this is a mix with a little bit more meat, and there is like the super premium powder protein that they bought in the industry that is made with animals that are not able to be consumed by humans, just like, I don't know. Let's think like pardon, sorry, chicken powder protein. Let's say that they were taking a chicken to the process plant, and the chicken was like without one leg, so they cannot use that chicken for human consumption. So they ship the whole chicken for animal consumption, and then the protein that they take out of the whole chicken is way better than the protein they take from the bones and the skin of the chicken, right? So that's like different levels of protein. But what to the place when I wanna go with all this story is like, it doesn't matter what kind of protein, or doesn't matter the claim they are putting on the food saying that that's real meat. It's mostly on the behind that claim is mostly powder protein that comes from different sources. So what you should be looking for is what is that quality of that protein. If it is made from the whole animal, if it is made from just bones and skin, or if it is in some place in between that process. Also, when we're talking about salmon food, most of that salmon food is likely to be just the salmon skin, and some others are like just the tails of the salmon. That's actually for dog food or for pet food. That's the most a valuable protein. So there is all there are like pages on internet when you can consult what kind of protein they're using for the. So if you join the newsletter, I'm gonna be happy to send that websites to you. I'm
So
sorry that I just totally moved the conversation over there, but trying to come back, we were doing like a kind of understanding what we were talking about. It is like, yeah, most of the dog or pet food that you're gonna find in the supermarket, they're gonna have claims, but most of the important things is what is the composition of that food. And when you see what is the composition of that food, you need to think what is the proportion between protein, fat, and carbs, and of course how Victor was talking about other minerals like phosphorus, and what was the other one, sorry.
yeah, calcium, phosphorus. There's lots of different minerals, vitamins. Yeah, those are all very important nutrients. And I would say like what you're talking about the powder protein that you might see a lot of on the ingredients list, like chicken meal or beef meal, and that is like a mixture of different things. It's been processed. And they might even see like bone meal and or beef and bone meal or stuff like that. So the bone part provides a lot of calcium to them, which is essential for life. So of course that's going to be very helpful. So yeah, the how much you get of each of those things like protein, how much carbohydrates, how much fat, all those things you might see on the label called the guaranteed analysis, which is actually very complicated. The guaranteed analysis you have to calculate a lot of things because it's based on a dry matter basis. So like you were talking about the water in the food, that's gonna interfere with your how much exactly you're getting, especially if you're comparing dry food versus canned food, which obviously canned food has more water in it, and it's going to make it very much more difficult to compare different foods with the guaranteed analysis. And then also with the ingredient list, that ingredient list is going to be listed with the top ingredient. The first ingredient listed is going to be the one that's has the highest mass or weight before extracting water. So the dry food, they extracted all the water, but before they extracted the water from the food, you might see chicken as the first ingredient. But if you extract all the water, the amount of chicken, the protein from the chicken is actually a lot less than maybe other ingredients. So that again also makes it difficult to interpret. So just because it's listed first doesn't mean that's the most ingredient, like the biggest amount of weight. So that is a little bit misleading. I think the knowing, looking for the AAFCO statement, and then also looking for what type of life stage that food is formulated for. So you might see something that says for adult maintenance or for growth. And then also you might see some that says all life stages. So those foods have to meet the most rigorous requirement, which is feeding the calories of like a growing puppy or kitten, because they need more nutrients. So those food that says for all life stages, you can feed it to an adult or to a puppy or a kitten, depending on what type of food you have. But the if you have a dog that's obese or morbidly obese and you're feeding a dog that food that says all life stages on it, you just might be giving too much calories. So you might want to give a food that's specifically for adult maintenance, not just all life stages in that
And then I
situation.
have a question about that. There is also I seen some food that is special for dogs that have obesity.
Yeah.
Are that like real claims or that's not that real?
So some of them are good. I would say the AFCO makes these rules that AFCO doesn't regulate the foods. States regulate the food. So each state has their own regulations and they follow AFCO guidelines or and sometimes even place more rigorous requirements on what's allowed to be on the food label. So if you have a claim on the food label, some of that is regulated and some of them are not. It's like claims like say like light food, so like for to lose weight or weight management, things like that. They have, I believe those claims are regulated, so they must cannot be too high of caloric density. So they might have more fiber in the food, so they have less calories, and maybe they feel fuller with the food. And there are also prescription diets that are for weight management or losing weight. So those are like satiety support and things like that. So they
Okay.
make you feel full. So there is a lot of science behind that, and depending on what you have, I would just look at the company and see if this is a company that you would trust or not. And there's a great um, website that has a free website that has a toolkit to help you know what is the best food for your dog or cat.
Uh-huh.
It's called the World Small Animal Veterinary Association, or WSAVA. And they have a toolkit for dogs and cats to just go over step by step, looking at how to evaluate a food to see if that is something that you would want to use.
Okay,
Yeah.
so talking about different kind of foods, I have right now many questions, but then I'm gonna try to prioritize them because the questions I have right now is like, what is the size or how I can determine what portion my animal should use? That's one question I have. Other question I have, it's a little bit more general about what kind of food is better, like if we should go through dry food, wet food, raw diet, that we can jump to that question soon. And then I have another question now that we're talking about weight management, and then there is a lot more different kind of foods like skin and hair or
Oh,
like agility. I mean, there are like different kind of foods that I don't know which one is better. So kind of in order to prioritize these questions, let's start for the most basic one, and let's
oh,
say, okay, I have my dog. How do I know how much food should I be feeding that animal like every day? And I know that we always gonna find like some indications on the box or in the package.
uh-huh.
How trustful are those labels? Because we don't know, like, okay, my dog might be overweight, but I'm just feeding what it says on the label. So how do I really know what amount of food should I be feeding my animal?
Oh yeah, that's absolutely fair, and it's gonna, of course, depend on the weight of the dog. Because a Chihuahua and a Great Dane are gonna have different amount of food that you have to feed them,
Mm-hmm.
and also based on the life stage. Senior dog or adult dog, or a puppy, is gonna have different amounts, of course, because of what they're growing as a puppy, or if they're pregnant or lactating. There are a lot of food companies that have those guidelines, like a feeding guide on their
Mm-hmm.
package. Some, that there are some good ones and some maybe not as great. What I would do is, if there is a way to calculate. There's actual formula they can use based off their weight in kilograms. So it's maybe we could put on our newsletter the formula, but
Yeah,
it's kind of
we can put it.
complicated. Yeah, and if you have a veterinarian that's helping you with it, say they something they teach in vet school, so that's also something they calculate for you to make sure that you're feeding the right amount. So first thing we do is look at the body condition of the animal. If they're overweight or underweight, or if they're perfect weight, and then try to determine what's the target weight that we want them to get to. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want to change their weight too quickly. So if they're, let's say they're obese, and we say they're 20 pounds, but they should be 7 pounds or something like that, or 10
Oh
pounds.
well.
No, well, that's maybe too extreme. Let's say they're 20 pounds, you want to get them to 11 pounds or something like that, or 10 or 15 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
um, we don't want them to calculate the food for their ideal body weight, but we're gonna slowly decrease the food. So we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna maybe do 2 weeks at a food for, if they're 20, let's calculate for maybe 20% reduction in their body weight. And then that's the food that we're going to calculate for. And then basically the formula is the weight in kilograms raised to the power of 0.75 multiplied by 70. That's what it's going to give us a number. Stay with me. It's going to give us a number that is going to say that is their resting energy requirement. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
when they're at rest or not doing anything, they're just sitting and not doing anything. That's their resting energy requirement, how many kilocalories they need per day. That
Mm-hmm.
number is then multiplied by another number that's called the DER factor, which is the daily energy requirement factor. And that's going to also depend if they're overweight, if they're growing, if they're neutered or spayed versus
Mm-hmm.
intact, because when they're spayed or neutered, they're more prone to
Different
gaining weight.
hormonal things. So the
Exactly.
metabolism is gonna be different.
Yeah, and then so then based on that, then we give us that is going to give us the actual kilocalories per day that should be given to that animal. That includes treats and their main diet. So then from there, we can then determine specifically. Of course, using the feeding guide is so much easier. So if you're using it
Yeah, we
with from a company, so yeah, if you're using a company
yeah.
that's more trustworthy, and then maybe that feeding guide is all you need. And also, you can just look at how your dog is doing. If they're losing weight or gaining weight, then maybe you should reassess. Maybe we should start thinking, okay, maybe I should give less or more, and maybe I should
Mm-hmm.
involve a veterinarian in this and determine maybe what exactly amount that I should be giving. So
Okay, so
that's
that's was cool. That was cool. I wasn't expecting that. That's kind of similar to the way we do for humans when we're calculating how much calories we need a day. It's actually same formulas, probably different numbers, but it's the same
mhm.
way. Let's make it in order to make it easier. We can do two things. One is we can send it the formula in the newsletter. So please join the newsletter, and that way we're gonna get it. And in the other hand, we also can looking for some pages online. Because I'm pretty sure should be some. I will looking for it. If I can find it, I will include it in the newsletter. If I cannot find it, I'm just gonna send the formulas.
The
But
feeding guides, they do have definitely on each website of a lot of companies, like for each specific food. So they have a feeding
okay.
guide for each of their products often. And it's also a lot of them is on the bag. So if you
Okay.
buy a bag of, whatever food, it's gonna be on the back of the bag usually. And that does help a
Mhm.
lot.
Perfect. So yeah, I guess that's more than helpful about how much food we should give to our dogs. So yeah, it is important to know what is their activity levels, and then I will say try to give him like the standard what the back say. And if you're seeing that your dog is starting gaining a lot of weight out of that proportion, then you can start decreasing it a little bit. Or you can just go to the if you wanted to make it like to be sure and make sure that you're giving the right amount is just using the formulas that we're gonna send in the notes later. So the other question I have, and I guess that might be the next most logical one, should be okay. What kind of food is better for my dog? And then I know in previous episodes we've been talking a lot about raw diets. When we
Mhm.
say it's not the best option, we should discuss that a little bit more about that today. And
Yeah.
also, I pick the dry food, wet food, raw diet, or the homemade meals. Yeah, what kind of food is better for dogs?
Yeah, I would say so. I would separate them to commercial diets versus non-commercial diets. And the commercial diets, you have dry food, you have wet food, you have fresh food, and then you have maybe some out there that are I don't know if there's commercial raw diets, but um, so dry food and wet food, biggest differences are the water content. Canned food is going to have more water versus dry, and then each animal, each dog or cat might have a specific food that they like. They might like canned food more than the dry food, or they might like dry food more than canned food. So that can help determine what you want to give for those. And then the fresh food is also has more water content, so you might have seen like things like Fresh Pet or Farmer's Dog or Just Food for Dogs. Those are companies that make fresh food, and those people like that because they see that it looks more natural or maybe more like human food. So they like giving that, and that's completely fine. I still look at the same. The rules still are the same. Like you want to look for that AAFCO statement, see if that's a company that you trust. And then the raw diets, I would say stay away from raw diets because you have a higher risk of getting bacterial infections. So like salmonella, listeria, E. coli, and there are other bacteria that you can get, not just your dog or cat, but also the humans that are handling the food, they can get it. And also, if the dog's infected by something like that, if they lick you, you can also get it from that too. So, especially if you have kids or seniors living in the household, that's even higher risk of getting sick. So, and it's a serious problem because it could also cause death. So, it could be a big problem. And then as far as home cooked diets, you can do home cooked diets. It's harder to get a complete and balanced diet. So the important thing is to find it for a complete, meaning they have enough nutrients that meet the requirements for that species, and then balance meaning the right ratios, as I talked about earlier, right ratio of every of the nutrients. So there is a website that's great, completely free for people to use called balanceit.com that helps people to create a home cooked diet for healthy dogs and cats. If they have a specific medical condition, it might not be the best. Probably um, best to do a consultation with a nutritionist if you still want to do a home cooked diet. A lot of this website allows you to put in which ingredients you want to cook at home. Like if you want to do chicken, if you want to do beef, if you want to do whatever fish, quinoa, rice, whatever you want to do, which vegetables, and then they tell you how much to put in of each ingredient. They might suggest maybe this ingredient is not the best. Here's some other options, and you can play around with it as much as you
Mhm.
want. And they ask you the weight of your dog or cat, and then they might have you add a supplement to the food, so a powder supplement that has vitamins and minerals to the food, and they're probably going to suggest their supplement. That's how they have make profit, but you want to be able to supplement their food so that they have enough of each nutrient that they need
Mhm.
to live. So that is a possibility to do a home cooked diet. It's just more difficult, and
Okay.
commercial diets, can meet the requirements for sure.
Okay. So then to summarize,
Yeah,
first step, get the formulas, calculate how much calories do your animal needs per day. And then when you start to deciding what kind of food you want, you have the options that are commercial and not commercial. Commercial ones will be the dried food, that is the normal kibble, that's the word, right?
yeah,
Kibbles. The
exactly.
normal kibbles. I'm learning few words. Kibbles. Then you also have the canned food, and it's like food that also come in sachets. Sometimes some brands come in sachets. Then we also have the fresh food. That is those packages that come home like frozen and you kind of get ready for your dog. That's most of the commercial food. Then for that food you should be able to recognize, and this whoever you pick, the important thing is like first, the food that you're feeding your dog a day meet the amount of calories per day you calculate previous for your animal, and second that they are like regulated, or well, not regulated but certified by this organization. OSCA is the name
So
again.
AFCO, but they don't
AFCO.
certify. They don't certify.
They okay, they claim to be guided, they claim to follow these guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to make sure we have that, and then we also need to see how our animal react, because if I decide that the farmers market is the best one for my dog and my dog get diarrhea, maybe it's not the best one, right?
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's the four main things. And then there is the non-commercial food. When we have the raw options, then it is will be a no. It is a no for it. No raw food. I mean, it cannot force you to don't use it, but you're assuming a huge risk every time you feed your dog raw food because you don't know what contaminants come in the food, right? And then the other option is the homemade food. Then it's like making meals for your dog, and then that's a yes bath, right? It's a
Mhm.
yes, but you need to make sure that the food you're giving your dog is well balanced. And
Uh-huh.
in order to do that, there are tools like this website balanced.com, and also there is like other supplements that you can buy and feed your dog in order to make sure that you're giving them all the vitamins and minerals. Was that
Okay.
a good summary?
That was perfect. Yeah, that was very good. Great job.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, it's important. It's very important to make sure that you're feeding your dog the right way. And then there is also a topic that you start feeding your dog with that food, and there is always that unknown variable that we don't know what can happen, and that's allow us to jump to another team, to another subject of the day, and it's okay. I'm feeding my dog right, but he is not doing right.
Uh-huh.
He's itching after food, or he's always going to the bathroom like Nico, or he has troubles, and then you decide and you realize with help for your dog, with your veterinarian, that your dog has a food allergy. So
Uh-huh.
how common is that in dogs to have like food allergies?
So
And I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
and when is a good moment for you, or what are the keys? Yeah, the keys to you see and you say maybe my dog is allergic to food. How
Uh-huh.
you detect it, and what is how frequent it is.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as like the skin problems, like itching and redness and things like that, I would say those are typically more, it's more common to be environmental allergies. So
Uh-huh.
allergies to things in the environment like dust mites, just like people, allergies to things like pollen, different types of plants in the area, and then or even insects and things like that. And then there are food sensitivities, food allergies, which are possible but less common than environmental allergies that can cause skin problems. And then to help determine if it's environmental or food allergy, you would have to use a hydrolyzed diet usually. So do a food trial, which I think you know about hydrolyzed diets. There are many out there in the market. They are prescription diet, so you need a veterinarian to give you a prescription to get the food. So they are a little bit more expensive. Fortunately, there are many, a few different options. And under hydrolyzed diets, we have ultra hydrolyzed and you have less hydrolyzed diets. The ultra hydrolyzed diets include the Royal Canin Ultimino, which I think I'm not sure if that's the only ultra hydrolyzed out there. So it's broken down such small pieces that are breaking down, like the protein is broken to such small pieces that you're not, the body's not going to react to it. There's another one from Purina called Elemental, which is a very tiny as well pieces of also like elements. I don't know if that is considered ultra hydrolyzed. So basically, if they have a food allergy, they're going to be allergic to a protein, like an animal protein. Chicken is the
Uh-huh.
number one most common. Number two is beef. So the more common ones are the ones that are they're going to be more allergic to. So another option would be to do a novel protein diet, which means like a protein that they're not exposed to. So like
Uh-huh.
rabbit or fish are like less common ones. So you maybe can try that as a food trial. And when you do a food trial, you can be very strict with the diet. They cannot get any other foods. They have to be or treats. They have to be on that just that food that has a hydrolyzed protein or novel protein, and they have to be on it for a long time because it's going to take a long time for the body to react or get back to normal. So like 4 weeks, I think 8 weeks, depending on what your goals are, or I think that's usually the timeline. I would have to double check. And then when we're talking about gastrointestinal problems like diarrhea, like you talked about, IBD and or like an irritable bowel disease or chronic enteropathy, those are basically medical conditions that they might have a food sensitivity. If you see that they're having diarrhea constantly, it's hard to sometimes figure out what they have, and sometimes you have to rule out other problems before you figure out what they actually have. So a food trial again is a common thing to do in those situations. So you might, I guess, if you're having a problem, you would have to work with a veterinarian a lot of times to figure out what it is. You can, before you go to a veterinarian, if you want to try a novel protein, like something that is, we have to be very strict with the food with that. But maybe at least talk to your veterinarian about it before you're trying something that might be harmful or might too drastic, with your dog or cat. Yeah.
So yeah, this is kind of the story I have with Nicholas. So for the ones who don't know him yet, he's my dog. He's over there watching outside. He's watching through the balcony, but he's such a nice dog, but he has a food allergy. It was like really bad at the beginning. He was eating almost everything, no problem. And then after certain like 4 5 months to be with me, he started like having a crazy diarrhea like every 15 days or so. And I was taking him like every time to the bed, and we get to that point when we didn't know what he has. And then we start to making a lot of tests, making a lot of changes until we finally get him on this prescription diet. The one he's getting is the hydrolyzed protein one, and he started improving. He's also on medication, like it looks to be like medication for all his life. But as soon as he's fine, that's okay. But it was a huge challenge for us to find out like what Nico has. And at the moment when we get to that, okay, he might have a diet allergy. He was like 2 or 3 months into treatment until we realized, okay, it might be an allergy. So it's not that easy to find, but some things you will see is first they start losing their appetite. So you see your dog is always like super food driven, and then one day to another he stop and he's like, I don't want that food anymore. That's a signal. Sometimes they are just a little bit sick, but that's a signal when that's persistent, like when that happen every 15 days, every week, or like it becomes periodically, that's a signal. Then you also can see when you walk them out, like they're having like issues to go to the bath, like they show a little bit of pain when they're trying to smell, or the opposite, like they're having a lot of diarrhea. He doesn't want me to count that embarrassing things, but yeah, it is hard to see. But when you start seeing like changes on their eating behavior, is better than you go to the bed. And sometimes it is a little bit frustrating because you feel like you're like seeing many options, and every time you bring them is like you get a hope that you're gonna solve the issue, but then you don't solve it. And then you have to go back again 1 week after, or 15 weeks after. Normal, sorry, 15 days after. Normally when that happens, when your dog start developing like this food allergy or something related with food, you're gonna start seeing that you're visiting the vet very often. Like the veterinary becomes like your second house. That's frustrating. That's frustrating, but with the time, when you realize, when you find it, and you're able to change your dog prescription, or like your dog food, and you find something that is good for them, or your cat, or whatever animal you have, and you get there, it will be rewarding knowing that you try so much. So keep just persisting, because the idea is your animal to be fine. If you get this friend for your life, is because you want to be there for them, and you're gonna pass by that. But then it is important for you to start in realize when you're not finding a solution, it might be something bigger, or some kind of chronic thing happening, and it could be an allergy. So if you're seeing that you're going very often and you still don't find anything, try to suggest your vet, like, what if we try a prescription diet and see if that improves my dog condition? That might help you find it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now he's happy because he's what he likes.
And I would say like with the prescription diets can sometimes be expensive, but if you compare like how much money you spend on prescription diet compared to like trying to treat the diarrhea over and over again, so you might think like prescription diet is worth it.
I mean,
Um,
I want to be honest. It's a little bit different, expensive, like a little bit more expensive, but it's not a huge difference. I mean, it's like a box of 24 pounds of regular food is like around a good food. It's around $80 to $90 a month. Well,
mm,
a bag of 24 pounds, whatever it takes
uh,
for your dog to eat it. And then this prescription diet, at least the one that Nico is having, is like 130. It's a
okay.
little bit less than 130. So it's not, it's significant, but it's not much difference. There are other dog foods that are a little bit cheaper, that
Mhm.
cost like 60 $70. If your dog is doing fine with that food, that's okay. But if you're seeing that at some point you need to change to that prescription food, I promise you it will be cheaper than going, like, bringing your dog to the vet every 15
Mhm.
days
Yeah.
because every time you go to the vet is normally 200, 400, unless then you have insurance. That way the insurance will cover 70%. But even with that situation, if you get the insurance after your dog is having the issues, that the insurance is not going to cover it. So it's better for you if you really need that prescription medicine, like using it, and also in the long term you're gonna be cheaper. And it's going to be better for the dog, of course, because you're gonna see how they grow healthy after 2 months. In the case of Nico, he was just prescription medicine for 3 months, and then when we were like 1 month and a half in the diet, is when we start seeing that he was doing better. Now he's like 5, 6 months in the diet, and he's just doing fine. Sometimes he still like tried not to eat, but nothing than a little bit of canned food can help, can fix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the good thing about canned food. Sometimes it's more has that good smell that they like. It makes them want to eat
Yeah.
more. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I would say like if you want to learn more about these things, there's a great website called from Tufts University in Massachusetts. They have this kind of a blog called Pet Foodology that gives it really easy to understand information about many different types of things about pet food that I would recommend you go to check out. It's with a veterinary nutritionist, Dr. Freeman, and she does break down things very well in easy to understand way. And then if you wanted to look at different companies, there's a association or an organization called the Pet Nutrition Alliance. They're really good. What they do is they called up tons of different pet food manufacturers and listed their information on their website so that you can find out, do they own where the processing plants, if they own their own processing plants, they have more control of what they're getting, doing. Information like, do they hire a nutritionist or someone with a PhD in animal nutrition, or do they have somebody that's at least consultation with them with those credentials? So those are really good resources for people to.
Okay. There is something else you wanna talk about dog or cat food?
Yeah, I think one of the most common questions people have is what brand should I feed? We already talked
Mhm.
about like what to look for in those foods, and things like which brands, and there are tons of great brands to give to your animal. I would say one of my favorite ones are Hills, Purina Pro Plan, Royal Canin. I like Just Food for Dogs if you like fresh food. That's a good one. It's kind of newer company though. Blue Buffalo makes veterinary diets that are great. I don't know as much about if their regular diets are as good, and their veterinary diets are kind of newer, but they have science backing up their claims and things like that. So which I like. They used to be not as good. Blue Buffalo, unfortunately, there's more marketing tactics. Those are the biggest ones I would say for me, but there are a lot of great brands sitting out. Those are a big list. I would just
Yeah.
say go with the um, World Small Animal Veterinary Association's toolkit to help you evaluate which brand is you would like to use. Yeah, I think that's the best.
Yeah. Nico used to eat Purina, and then now that he's on the prescription diet, he's eating Hills
Uh,
prescription. So if someone of those brands want to sponsor us, you see, you don't pay for this time, but next one we're gonna charge you, okay?
yeah, free advertisement. That's what we're doing.
but
Free marketing.
but yeah, I was asking if there was something else you want to talk about. I guess we cover a lot of important subjects. I'm not sure if maybe we don't talk, and I guess this is an important thing. When we talk a lot about maybe trying different diets, change diets, but we never talk about how is that process, because sometimes when we say, okay, let's change the diet of the pet, like let's change this kibble for whatever other food we want to feed them, it might sound like, okay, today they are eating the food they are eating today, and then tomorrow I'm gonna give them the food, but that's not really how it works. So how should be like that food transition when we want to change the or dog or a cat's diet? How should be
Yeah,
that transition?
I would say definitely a slow transition, usually at least over a week, sometimes 2 weeks. You can do maybe um, 90% of the old food and 10% of the new food, and you slowly change it that way. So you mix the food together. So maybe the next day a little bit more of the new food, a little bit less of the old food. Like halfway through, do 50-50 until you get to exactly 100% of the new food. So they're very sensitive. They can have because if you do a fast transition, they can definitely have diarrhea or vomiting and not wanting to eat, kind of like the symptoms that you've noticed with Nico when he had his problems. So that is a huge thing um, to keep in mind when you're changing your food. And that goes with cats too. Yeah. And I just
Yeah,
remembered, sorry, I just wanted
go ahead.
to say something about rabbits. I just remembered. So rabbits are cecotrophs. So what that means is they have to eat their own poop. So if you see a rabbit eating their own poop, that is completely normal. Their hind gut fermenters, so their large intestines ferment the food that they're eating, and then the poop has more nutrients. So they have to, and they actually can somehow control, and nobody knows how they do this, how they control which type of poop they're pooping out. They can poop that has more nutrients than their
Uh,
other poop, so they can and then they'll sometimes eat it uh, directly from their butt. So that is completely normal if you see that. I think that's important for
okay.
people to know. They just are new rabbit owners and they or new rabbit parents, so they need to know that. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, it's important. Might
yeah,
be a little bit gross, but
yeah.
it is needed.
It's needed, important for their health.
Yeah, okay. I used to have when I was really young, I had like two rabbits.
Mhm.
Many things I didn't know like that. I always
Yeah.
take the poop out of their house.
Well, they do.
Uh,
They don't eat all their poop, so that's probably it's good to clean out their enclosure. You don't want them to be having too much poop in there for sure. So
mhm.
that you probably did the right thing for them.
Yeah, it was chaotic. I
Yeah.
just remember having the rabbits in my house, and it was chaotic. I guess at the end my grandmother just like give them away
Mm.
because they were like a little bit of a mess. And then
Oh.
that's when I realized that I was really good with dogs, but not with other animals.
Okay. Yeah. I never had a rabbit before. I've had hamsters, but no rabbit.
I used to have rabbits, birds,
Hmm.
fishes, a lot of dogs. Yeah, I guess it's mostly dogs. But yeah, I also have like oh, I also have chickens at my house.
Wow.
One time, yeah, chickens. Yeah, many things. I
Yeah.
guess I always love the animals.
That's awesome. Yeah. I never had
I can yeah.
or yeah. I had fish, but no birds.
And then I guess that's most of what we have ready for today, unless that you have something else to say before we say goodbye.
Well, there's so much things about pet nutrition that we can go into, but I don't want to. I know we've already been talking for so long, and I don't want to overwhelm people. But yeah, I'm always excited about pet food and talking about it, and it's something that I'm passionate about. So, yeah,
Okay.
if anybody has questions, please send them our way. We want to answer your questions, or please sign up for our newsletter. Check
Okay.
out Pet Foodology if you want to know more details about things. But yeah, that's the main things. And talk to your veterinarians if you have ever questions too. They're there to help.
Okay, so thank you so much. I'm pretty sure that we're gonna have episode two, episode three, episode four about this topic in the future. So this is going to be a matter that we're gonna be a subject that we're gonna be repeating over and over, but always with different and most interesting stuff. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for listening this episode. I guess we covered most of what we wanted to cover today. Be ready for the next week because next week we're gonna be talking about pet behavior. Probably talking a little bit about reactive animals, reactive pets, reactive dogs, maybe nervous dogs, and how can it be like part of the same spectrum. Like one side they are like super nervous, the other side they are like super reactive. That's something we're gonna be talking about the next episode. As far as today, that's everything for this week. So thank you for staying here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, give us the 5 stars, and you have the newsletter to join. And also there is all the forms in the description. If you want to submit a question, if you want to submit a feedback, if you want to sponsor us, or if you want to come with us and be our guest in one episode. So feel free to fill the forms and see you in the next week in the next episode.
Thank you guys. See you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Yep.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.